Um, Dylan, thanks, man. Are you okay with us sharing this recording of your story publicly?
Absolutely.
Can you or anyone you may mention face legal prosecution or get into trouble for anything you share?
No, not to the best of my knowledge.
Sweet. Okay, man, I'm going to mute myself. Introduce yourself however you want, and the time
All
is
right.
yours.
My volume all right here? All right, cool. Well, my name is Dylan, and I am a drug addict. I thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an absolute honor to join you guys. Just before I get into the story, today has been a beautiful day for me, man. I just want to share some of the blessings of today alone that the program has allowed me to experience. I woke up this morning and I went to the gym. I took care of myself physically, mentally. I prayed today. I took care of myself spiritually. I got to go and watch my daughter do her private dance lesson. I got to be there present as a father for my daughter to watch her do her private dance lesson. I got to work today from home, doing stuff that I actually enjoy. I got to, help people out with their homes, with their living situation, a roof that is very important to them. People trust me with that transaction. I got to work with a sponsee. I got to take a sponsee who's been struggling to get clean for years. And I got to take him through some step work today. This kid that I've known for a long time. So it was an absolute honor to sit there and do step work with this kid who means so much to me. Right after this recording, I'm heading right over to a treatment facility to do H&I work and carry the message there as well. I'm absolutely beyond blessed. And it is strictly because I get out of the way the best that I can most of the time, try not to make a mess of God's will in my life. And I work my 12-step program with the sponsor. I work with sponsees. And most importantly, I don't pick up today no matter what. And those blessings, the day that I just had is a direct result of that process right there. And I wanted to share that because it was not always like that for me whatsoever. There was a long time where I was miserable and I absolutely hated myself. I hated life. And I had no idea how to get out of this addiction that I was living in. I was born right here in Phoenix, Arizona, more specifically the Maryvale area. I was born to two teenage parents. My mom was 17 and my dad had just turned 19 years old. There was a lot of partying in the house, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugging, as kids would do, and I always like to preface anything about that I say about my childhood by saying that I do not believe that I had a bad childhood. I believe that I had an inappropriate childhood. And I think there's a really big difference. And I also would like to say that I think you could have raised me with the most sober family in the world, and I still believe that I'd be an alcoholic today. Having said all that and preface everything out, when I was young, an event occurred when I was about 2 years old. There was an event occurred that I believe shaped my life to this very day. My dad, who was 19 at the time, when he had me, so my dad was about 21 years old at the time, lost his little brother in a tragic car accident. This set my dad off on a pretty a downward spiral, my grandmother included. My dad drank himself into a hole, fell into a massive depression. My grandmother never recovered from that depression, that drug addiction, and she died at an early age from it. I didn't see what it was like to handle trauma in a healthy way. I never watched anybody in my family truly talk about their feelings or deal with these emotions or deal with childhood trauma or deal with the things at hand that cause us to drink or drug in the first place. I never seen that. I seen what it was like to stuff emotions. And that's what I would eventually go on to reenact. When I was about 4 years old, I was introduced to suicide. My uncle comes up to me one day. I'm in a room, it's just me and him, and he says, "Dylan, it's time to kill myself." He swallows a bottle of pills. The next thing that I remember, his head smacks the corner of an end table, and I watch him kind of pass out unconscious. I panicked. I absolutely panicked, and I ran to my grandmother at the time, and I let her know what I had just seen. I told this story to my wife not too long ago because as I'm continuing to stay clean, as I'm continuing in my meditation, continuing in my journaling, and just my search for root causes so I can address them, these things are starting to pop up. And I told my wife this story. One of the questions that she asked me was, "Did anybody talk to you afterwards?" My response was no. I don't remember anybody coming and talking to me and explaining what had happened, or maybe trying to make me understand in a way that is healthy for a child of that age to understand. Again, it was just ignored, most like, pretty much like every other thing. We just kind of stuffed it away, didn't talk about it, pretend it didn't happen, pretend it didn't exist, and just hope that the problem would go away by itself. That's how I was introduced to suicide. It was an unsuccessful attempt, but as far as what I had seen and the effect that it had on me, it was there. Growing up, I had really one rule, there, and again, there was a lot of love in my house though, despite all the craziness, all the partying, whatever, there was always a lot of love in my house. I knew my parents loved me, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But I pretty much had one rule, and that was to get straight A's in school. If I got straight A's in school, I was, for the most part, allowed to do pretty much as I pleased. I was 7 years old, going to the Warped Tour, which is a huge rock, like punk rock, well, what used to be a punk rock festival, a huge music festival. I'm 7 years old and I'm going by myself with my friends. The youngest one of them, my friend was 13 years old. He had a buddy who was 15 who had a driver's permit, whose mom let him take the car, and that's how we would get to the Warped Tour. So I was allowed to do a lot of things that, now looking back at it, is pretty insane. I have a 6-year-old. Well, my daughter's about to turn 6 at the end of September, and I cannot imagine sending her to a concert with her friends from the neighborhood at all. So looking back at it, I now realize the inappropriate actions that were taking place. Although I will say it's still to this day one of the best days of my entire life, being at the Warped Tour at 7 years old by myself. I had an absolute blast crowd surfing in the mosh pit. I was all probably 50 pounds, so they were just tossing me. I loved it, right? Like I felt comfortable in that chaotic atmosphere. But during this time, I also feel like a lot of my character defects that will one day try to kill me were born out of necessity during this. I feel like my control freak tendencies had to kick in so I could keep everything under control. My ego had to be big enough to tell me that I'm badass enough to handle the situation, that I'm okay, and that I'm completely safe in this crowd of thousands of people without my parents, and I get separated from my friends for half the day, right? Like I had to tell myself, and I had to keep myself calm in that situation. That report card allowed me to do a lot of stuff. And what I now realize is that report card was my first mistake at thinking that social acceptability equaled personal recovery. So if I had something to show you, if I could show you the report card, I could show you my straight A's, that means I could also tell you to fuck off. That means I could also tell you that I don't have a problem. I can do whatever it is that I see fit. I'm sorry, you can't do the same. I can handle my shit. Maybe you should learn how to handle yours. And that's the attitude that I had. And that's the attitude that one day tried to take my life. I carried on with that. But as I got a little bit older, man, that void started kicking in. That loneliness started kicking in. I had friends. I was a 3-sport athlete year round, basketball, football, baseball year round. I was on a skateboard from the time that I could crawl. I started making music in 8th grade. I had all of these people around me, with all these different activities, and I had friends, but I always felt incredibly lonely. I always felt that disconnect from people, like I didn't have a place, like I didn't fit in anywhere. I didn't know who my people were. So I was content by myself in my room getting high at a very young age. When I was in high school, I just continued getting in trouble, man. And after a while, I could give a fuck about the straight A's. All I wanted to do was make sure that I graduated and that my parents didn't find out that I was ditching class again for the most part, And I did that. I did graduate, by manipulation. I manipulated the counselors, the teachers, convinced them this and that. And, I have no idea how I did it exactly, but I got the same piece of paper that everybody else got. So now I'm thinking I could cut corners, I can find loopholes and get the same exact reward as you. Fuck off. I ain't doing that work. You can do it. That ain't for me, right? Now I think I'm special. I think I'm unique. I think consequences that apply to everybody else do not apply to me. My attitude was absolutely horrible, and in high school, I was actually introduced to the 12-step program. I got my first felony at 15 years old, and I was on probation, ordered to drug classes, meetings, all of that stuff, and I remember one thing and one thing only from that entire experience. My probation officer said, Dylan, do you know why you're here? I said, well, I'm here because I got arrested with drugs and all that stuff. And he says, well, no, that's not why you're here. You're here because you told on yourself. You're here because you got caught. I didn't remember a single share. I didn't remember a single person speaking about the warning signs that, they were seeing with me. I don't remember any of it. I pretty much watched my future flash before my eyes at 15 years old, and I couldn't recognize any of it. The only thing that I remembered was him saying, don't tell on yourself. Don't admit to anything. And that's what my alcoholic mind took away from that at that very young age, having no idea that I was an alcoholic at this time. So that's exactly what I did. When I graduated high school, I got this phone sales job, this cold calling, literally cold calling people wherever the fuck they were, right? And selling them online websites. I became really good at this really fast. All of a sudden, my skills of manipulation and that whole chameleon thing that a lot of us adapt to came in handy really quick. And at 18 years old, I kind of like just started killing it in this company. By the time I was 19, I started my own company in my bedroom. The worst possible thing happened to me when I started that company. I became successful. When I became successful, my ego blew up to an even more dangerous level. Now, I don't have the report card to show you, but I got the bank account to show you. My next mistake at thinking social acceptability equals personal recovery. So now I can look at you and say, man, my bank account's better than your parents' bank account. You could fuck off this and this and this and that, right? This egotistical little shit who really didn't know anything about fucking life. But I'm sitting here running my mouth, drinking and drugging all damn day, thinking I don't have a problem because I can speak good to some strangers on the phone, right? Eventually, my alcoholism started catching up with me. Eventually, that business that I was so proud of got shut down, right? And eventually, I went from having, what I prided myself on this bank account and going on these vacations and these trips at a young age, to now I'm the kid showing up first thing in the morning with the exact change to buy a tall can from the exact same convenience store clerk every single morning, making that walk of shame. My alcoholic mind told me that I did not have a problem with alcohol. My mind told me that I no longer had that shield of social acceptability to say that I didn't have a problem with alcohol, and I needed to change that. I needed to go back and make more money. I needed to go and do something because I needed to show everybody that I was actually just fine. So what did I do? Just like the drug addict that I am, I went from doing absolutely nothing. When I shut that business down, all I did was drink and play golf. I went from that to I went to real estate school, started working full time, and I started going to college full time. All or nothing, right? College wasn't for me. I got my credits or whatever. The college wasn't for me, but I decided that real estate was going to stick around. And I'm working at this golf course. During this phase of my life, I'm doing cocaine, Adderall, smoking weed, and drinking alcohol like a fish every single day. Not one time did I ever think, hey, maybe I have a problem with substance abuse. Not one time. By the time I got my real estate license and I'm starting to sell some houses, I am now reintroduced to painkillers. When these painkillers got reintroduced to my life, that was a game changer for me. All of a sudden, I started having these thoughts, maybe I don't have this under control. And I remember this one specific day, man, I was taking a shower. I just got home from work and I was taking a shower and I was calling my I had sent my drug dealer a text message. And I remember sitting in that shower praying that dealer did not get back to me, because it was almost as if my soul, my spirit, whatever the hell you want to call it, had that feeling like, this is different, man. This is different. We're getting into some dangerous fucking water here. I didn't listen to it, of course, because why would I? I'm a drug addict, and I was refusing to admit complete defeat at that point. I go on and I get hooked. I was hooked on everything else before, but I wasn't withdrawn like I was withdrawn from these opiates when I didn't have them. That was kind of like the tell. That's when that's one of those lines crossed. I remember a couple of times when I would first withdraw from alcohol, I really didn't know what that was, but now this was becoming really apparent when I'm withdrawing from these opiates. I decided I want to start trying to get clean. but I'm not going to use the help of God. I'm not going to use the help of a 12-step program. I don't need a sponsor. I don't need all that shit that you guys need to get clean. Check the resume. I make shit happen, right? Like that's still where my fucking egotistical mind took me. I don't need help. I can do this. Just give me a couch in a couple of days. I'll be on my way. And that's what I thought, right? So I tried withdrawing. Time and time again, I tried to get clean by myself. Time and time again, I failed. Time and time again, I was ready to chop my legs off because of the restless legs. I was sweating through my sheets, in and out of the hot bathtub because I can't regulate my body temperature, shit and piss and puking time and time and time again, but I still don't need help. Right. And I'm thinking of all kinds of crazy shit at this point. So then I decided that I am ready to go to a meeting, but I'm not willing to work the steps. I'll go to the meeting because I think I need to talk about some shit, but I'm not going to work the steps. That's too much work. I agreed to get sober. I did not agree to work at staying sober. All right. So I go, I even get a sponsor. This dude comes up to me, says, "Hey, Dylan, I'm going to sponsor you." I said, "Cool." I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. I didn't know what a sponsor was. So he says he's going to sponsor me. He says, "Call me every day." So I start calling him occasionally, right? But now I got my social acceptability back. Now I can tell everyone, no, I go to meetings. I have a sponsor. I have this. I'm good. Like, you don't have to worry about me. Meanwhile, I'm still getting high. All right. One day my sponsor says, "Dylan, man, when you're withdrawing, I know it's uncomfortable, but you gotta keep moving. You gotta stay moving." Right. Still not willing to trust God. Still not willing to work any steps. I decided the problem is I don't have Suboxone. If I'd had Suboxone, I would have gotten clean a long time ago. That's the problem. So what do? I go and get Suboxone, and my insane drug addict mind tells me that Suboxone and a round of golf is what's going to take for me to get clean that day. All right. So I live in a town called Avondale. I drive 45 minutes away to a city called Chandler to go play golf at this casino. I take this Suboxone on the golf course, and I'm teeing off. From the time I tee off, and I don't know if people listening to this play golf, but you tee off, and if you're anywhere blessed enough to hit a somewhat straight shot, you end up in some grass for your second shot. All right, in the fairway. Well, from the time I teed off to the time I got to my second shot, I've now thrown myself into the worst precipitated withdrawal that I have ever been in my entire life. I'm with my uncle. I'm with my cousin. I don't say shit except for, "Hey, man, I gotta go." That's it. I jump in the golf cart, and because why wouldn't I be? I am at the furthest part of the golf course from the parking lot. Golf courses are not small, so I got a ways to go. This golf cart is not moving very fast. I got a ways to go, and I am deathly ill at this point. I finally get back to the parking lot. I finally get into my Jeep, and I get to the busy intersection. There's this intersection right off of the freeway, hundreds of cars. What happens when I withdraw? I can't really control my bodily functions. So what do? I put that motherfucker in park right on that main crossroad right there. And I go to the corner, and here in Arizona, we got a lot of tumbleweed looking bushes. I find the one tumbleweed looking bush that I can find. I get behind it, and there's hardly any cover at all. But here I am just shitting in front of hundreds and hundreds of cars passing by through that time. It is a busy intersection off of the freeway to a casino and golf course. All right. If that's not embarrassing enough, I finally get back to my Jeep. I hit up my dealer. "Hey, man, we have an emergency here, right? I need you to meet me ASAP." Problem is, I still got to drive a half hour in that condition to meet up with my guy. I get to this filthy McDonald's in this bad part of Phoenix, but I don't have anything to do my drugs with. And at this point, my drug of choice is now switched to fentanyl. All right. And they come in these little fucking pills, fentanyl. It's this little devil, Satan in a pill form. It comes, at least in this part of the country. I don't have anything to smoke them. I don't have anything to crush them up and store them because I'm getting clean. Right. So I threw out all my shit. So I resort to eating them. I chew about 6 of these things up before I'm finally able to walk again. I am that deathly ill. I am that weak. I crawl into this McDonald's bathroom. And this is a filthy place. There's piss and shit all over the place. And I'm just laying in it because that's how weak I was. That's where I was. And I remember staring at that floor thinking, how in the hell did this happen? How did I ever let it get this bad? This was not my intention. I did not choose to do this. Choices were gone in my life. But how did I ever let this happen? I had straight A's. I had a business. I had goals. I had dreams. How did I ever let this get this bad? I wish I could tell you that was the day that I decided to get clean, but it wasn't. I had to go on and continue and beat my ass for a little while longer. During this time in my life, my wife and I are adopting my niece. All right. I adopted my niece because I believe she didn't deserve drug addicts as parents. Her biological parents were active addicts, only to give her a drug addict as a parent. Social acceptability. The world can look at my Facebook and say, man, Dylan's a great guy. He adopted his niece. He's doing so good. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Dylan's trying not to kill himself, right? That social acceptability, always looking for it and always life-threatening for me. So one day, after going on and on and on, living that exhausting hell, that life that I'm so grateful I'm not living today. I'm sitting in my daughter's bedroom and my wife comes up to me and she asks me, Dylan, are you ready to go to treatment? She has asked me that question time and time again. And every single time I said, no, I'm not going. I don't want to go. I don't need to go. I can do this on my own. And I really thought it. That's the fucked up part about it, man, is I genuinely thought that sweating it on my couch, I could do it. I genuinely meant it. I really, really did. And I really wanted to get clean. I really did. I just didn't know how. So time and time again, I would try. And time again, I would fail. Time and time again, I woke up the very next day just to put myself right back in that self-induced prison that cost me $300 a day to get out of. And I had no idea how to get out of it because I was relying on my own knowledge, my own strength, and my will. I looked at my wife and I agreed to go to treatment. Prior to this, I had planned on committing suicide. I thought the only way out of my addiction was to end my life. I see no other way out. So I was going to write a letter to my family. I was going to write a letter to my wife. I was going to write a letter to my daughter explaining to her that daddy loves you so much. I'm so sorry that I can't be there to watch you grow up. I was going to drive up to Prescott, Arizona, and I was going to end my life. I agreed to go to treatment. My wife says, great, I'm going to find you a place. She comes back, says, Dylan, I found this place in Prescott, Arizona that I'm going to send you to treatment to. I believe God was working in my life long before I allowed that relationship to blossom. So on July 17th, man, I snorted my last fentanyl pill in a QT bathroom and I drove up to Prescott, Arizona. July 18th, 2019 is my sobriety date. It is a date that I hold close to my heart, a date that, take my birthday, I don't even give a shit about my birthday, but my sobriety date, like that is like everything to me. I'm so proud of that date, you know, and I wish I could say that, you know, it was smooth sailing from there, but even in detox, man, I still had those reservations. I still had that thought that, you know what, I don't think I'm like these people though. Like I'm not these people. Like I just stubbed my toe for 10 fucking years, 15 years, right? Like I don't think I need all this stuff still, but I do think I need their help to get clean. All right. I didn't think I needed their help to stay clean at this point. Up to this point, I hadn't had the strength to talk to my daughter. Like emotionally, I just couldn't do it. The thought of her voice would just break me down while I was in detox. So a week or two goes by and I finally think I have the emotional strength to talk to her. And the very first thing that she tells me, she's 3 years old at this time. My wife puts her on the phone. The very first thing she says is, Daddy, are you finally coming home tonight? And when I had to tell her, baby, no, daddy can't come home tonight, I still have some more work to do, it absolutely broke me. And I'm so grateful for that phone call because that was like that literal and metaphorical hit my knees moment. And like the light switch went on, man. And I came to this place of surrender. I came to this place of acceptance and I accepted you know what? I am a drug addict. I do need help. I'm right where I belong. And these are my people. And when I accepted that and I surrendered to that fact, dude, my beautiful life was about to blossom, you know, and I'm not saying it wasn't difficult. It hasn't been difficult, but like in the 12 and 12 in step 1, it talks about that, like that powerlessness, that surrender, that, you know, humiliation is going to be the bedrock upon which we build our foundation. And I had no idea of it, but that was absolutely about to go down in my life. And when I accepted all of that, I started connecting with people again. All of a sudden, these guys who were at my sober living house while I was in treatment became like brothers. And we started having intimate conversations, beautiful conversations, vulnerable conversations. And I started connecting with people in a way that I never thought possible and I never had before, you know. And when I left treatment, The very first thing that I did, I went to a meeting and I fucking stayed at those meetings. I was at 2, 3, 4 meetings a day, minimum of 2 a day, right? And that, let me tell you, that gap between the noon meeting and the 7 o'clock meeting, that was a long damn gap for me in those early recovery days. I was like, holy shit. But I did whatever I could do to get there, man, like, and stay there. I would sleep in the parking lot waiting for meetings to start, whatever it was. I was going to lunch, fellowshipping all day, every day. I was barely home because I was always with other addicts, trying whatever I could, doing whatever it took to stay clean that day, because I was terrified to go back to that living hell that I was in. I go on and I rough it out, dude. But you know what? I talked about it and I found other addicts who I related to. And those guys saved my life. I started working my steps with the sponsor. I started doing H&I, and I started carrying the message to people who were still struggling in treatment, you know, and I just started working with people. Me and my guys, Goomer, Jordan, Donnie, man, we started the Not So Anonymous podcast. I think Donnie was the only one who even had a year of sobriety at this point. We're just having these most insane conversations outside of the meeting hall, talking about the hilarious shit we did, but then like in the same conversation, laughing our asses off about this insanity, to having the most vulnerable real talk ever. And it was just mind blowing, you know, and we just wanted to share that with people. And that's how I started staying clean, man, that camaraderie, that fellowship. You know, you fast forward to today, I went through a lot of shit in recovery, but I'm so grateful for it. Like, I'm so grateful for the pain of addiction. I'm so grateful for the pain of early recovery, because it forced me to start building my foundation, a foundation that I still rely upon today. You know, like I said, I got to do some real estate stuff today. I got to be a dad today. I got to be a sponsor today. I get to be a speaker today. I get to go to H&I, you know, and do some more 12-step stuff today. Like, my life is so fulfilled with those type of things, man. You know, and it's a blessing, and I really can't describe it, but it's only once I'm willing to humble myself before God humbles me and set my ego, my pride aside, which is still difficult for me to do at times, a lot of times, you know, but when I can do those things, like, I get to experience some really, really cool shit, you know. And obviously there's so much more, dude, but I'll cut it with that. And, you know, you can hear a lot more of my story on my podcast, Not So Anonymous. You can follow us at Not So Anonymous Podcast. Me and all my guys, man, have some pretty good stuff, you know, and it's a lot of camaraderie. And if there's anything that I want to convey, is the fellowship, the brotherhood, and camaraderie that I have found in recovery, because I am a subscriber to that cliche classic saying, man, the opposite of addiction is connection. I believe that wholeheartedly. So thank you so much for having me on today, Willie.